Welcome. Today we're talking about bass fishing, and this lure right here you see on the screen is called a crankbait, right? And depending how big the beak is right there, you see that little
The plastic piece on
plastic
the
piece
front.
right there. I'm trying to zoom in right here. Anyways, um, depending on that plastic piece, the smaller ones usually go like shallow waters, like 5, 10 feet. The medium size goes like to like 30, maybe 50 feet, and then or like 20 to 30 feet, and then the bigger ones go like 50 or deeper.
Yeah, it definitely depends on what type of watercolor you're into. If it's darker water, you use a lighter bait. If it is lighter water, you use a darker bait. And you obviously can use any of those baits in any type of water. It's just what the fish prefer. And usually it's more flashier for the fish, and it's gonna make them want to bite the bait because of just the color of it and what water they're in at the moment.
Yes. Sometimes fish like reaction out of the bait.
Yeah.
So like rattle traps, crankbaits. Um, Usually when I fish my crankbait, let it hit the bottom so it could hit the rocks and bounce off. And usually fish would like that. Normally bass like reaction bites when it like right after it got like gets done raining,
hmm
and that's like the time to use like rattle traps and all that stuff.
And then if Ty clicks that other one, the rat swim bait, so there's also different variants. Um, that one is just like the rattle trap. It can sink in the water and it goes pretty far down, but it is definitely one that I mean, you can definitely catch fish with it, but it's an interesting bait for sure. Just because it's a rat, it's definitely not common for fish to strike on a rat. Um, but there's actual like fish imitating swim baits, like bluegill design, trout. There's like actual ones that fish will actually go for because that's what they eat.
Yes. Um, 1 second. I keep clicking stuff.
And then there's other baits. There's swim baits,
There's
just
spinner
like that.
weights.
Uh, Swim baits that we just covered. There's spinner baits just like that, um, which are going to attract the fish, and you throw it out. And there's different weights to it. All these baits. So there's, um, I think it goes by like
Ounces.
ounces. So there's 1 ounce, 1.5 ounce, 1.4 or 1/4 ounce, 1/8. I'm pretty sure, but
Yeah.
there's a bunch of ounces. It just depends on what you're going for, what size fish you're going for. If you're just fishing like a regular pond, I would go with like a 1.5.
Yeah.
Sound right? Um, that's probably a good size lure. And with spinner baits, you throw it out there and it spins, and the light reflects off the spinners. The two spinners, you can have three spinners. You can even have just one spinner. But it reflects off the spinner and it attracts the fish because they're like, oh, there's something shiny in the water, and then they go for it. And bass are usually attracted to like shad and a bunch of shiny fish just in the water in general. So when they see that lure, they're gonna pounce at it, depending on if that's what they're going for that day.
I agree with them. You could also fish this lure kind of like a yo-yo. You and like how you fish a yo-yo is you pull it up, and then you as you let it drop, you reel it in to reel in the slack so you know you got a fish, and you just keep on letting it like setting the hook up like a tight, letting it lightly, and then letting it fall back down, and then keep on reeling it in.
So if Ty could click that gray one, see that gray one right there. Um, so there's a bunch of lures on that one. There's um, crankbait. There's actually two of them. No, there's one
There's one
crankbait, but there's
crankbait,
two
two rattle
lipless,
traps.
cranks,
Yeah,
and then there's um,
a
a
jig.
spinner. Uh,
Um,
there's like this little toad thing. Um, plastic. But yeah, there's like a bunch of lures that you can use for fishing.
With the two plastics, like the little green thing on the bottom right, and that little, I don't know what that is on the crawfish
The crawfish,
on the
yeah.
top left. You could put those on jigs, and what jigs are, they're like a heavy, like top heavy. So you throw it out, you cast it out, and then the head of the lure hits the floor, and then you just jig it up, and well, usually those little plastic pieces move, and then somehow catches the attention of the fish.
Hmm.
Um, Rattle traps, well, the whipless cranks. You could kind of do the same thing with the crankbait, but you could fish it anyway, like any way you want, kind of. You could rip it through grass, or not grass, weeds, but good luck
You can pretty much,
with that.
with Ty's point, he has good points, but you can pretty much just fish these however you want, really. It just depends on what you want to do. If you fish them certain ways, though, you're gonna have a better hookup ratio, better, I don't know, I feel like better opportunity when it comes to fishing. It just
Yeah,
depends on like the water that you're fishing in and just the technique that you use. That's what it comes down to, pretty much.
that's for sure.
Oh, and then if you click the one with the guy's hand,
Right
so
here.
those are swim baits. Those are the ones that I was talking about before. There's certain ones. They have bluegill ones, sunfish, crappie. Um, what else? They have the bass one. They have trout. They just have a bunch of like designs, and it depends on like what size you get. Like there's a bunch of sizes, and then there's right down there what you call a spook, right?
Yeah,
So there's, I think that's a spook junior because it's actually smaller. Spooks usually have four treble hooks. That one only has two, so that's a spook junior. And it's a top water, and you twitch it. You twitch your rod, and it moves and imitates, kind of like a frog bait or a top water, or it is a top water. So it imitates just like a frog kind of, and you just twitch your rod, and it moves however you twitch it. And then there's obviously bugs. There's bug lures, so there's just different lures, and then you can see the bass right there with the crawfish in its mouth.
not the spider.
Spider.
Um, with the spook, I feel like it's trying to imitate like a dead fish, kind of.
Yeah.
Um, but I'm not really sure what it's trying to imitate. But frogs, you do the same thing as the spook. You twitch your rod as you reel it in, and it's supposed to imitate a frog. Um, Poppers, they do the same thing, kind of, but they make a splash.
Yeah, they're more like pronounced. They're more um what's it called? They're more what's the word? Um Annoying, pretty much.
Yeah.
They like kind of like ripple the water, and they're very like obnoxious. And that's when you get like the top water bite where the fish will just rip that thing apart.
Mhm.
I mean, that's what I like. The top water is the way I like to fish because it's just like the action that the fish just grabs the bait and just jumps out of the water and just grabs it. It's really cool. Frogs are probably the first one that I tried, and then um, I do use popper sometimes, but I have not caught a fish on a popper yet because it's just like the technique is just not something I'm used to yet.
Buzzbaits.
Buzz baits
Um,
are really popular, yeah.
they're one of my favorite lures. They kind of work like kind of like jigs, but you could reel them in, and that little blade right there is kind of like a crankbait. You can make it go deeper.
Just depends how you reel it, right?
Yeah, and then it could
Yeah.
change the movement of the lure also. And you could put like little plastic things on the hook, kind of
Like little plastic crawfish.
like plastic swim bait. You could put at the end of them, and then yeah, They're one of my favorites. You could make it weedless too with the lures that you put on the hook. So that's fun.
Yeah, I haven't used one of those in a long time, but they're really cool. They rattle in the water, like Ty was saying, and or they don't they rattle, they like spin or rattle.
No, they don't. They're kind of like swim
They
baits.
they they do a movement because it's kind of like it's definitely like it has a resistance.
Yeah, and then it does make a noise, but a very slight noise.
Yeah, there's a little bit of resistance when you have it on the end of your rod, and the end of your line, and you can pretty much put whatever you want on those hooks. Like usually people want to go color pattern, so with the chartreuse one, you want to go with a chartreuse bait. With the top one, the black and red, you want to go with like kind of like a uh,
It's either like a darker
yeah,
color.
like a
You kind of
what?
want to match the
Not
color of
yeah,
the skirt of the.
yeah, yeah. So with the one, the like one right there, the first one on the row, you usually want to go with like get like a ghillie suit or like a watermelon kind of where it's like darker like that, but it's not too dark. And then there's usually like a speckled like black and blue one, and you usually want to go with just like a black and blue bait with that. And you can do swim baits, you can do craws, uh, you can pretty much do whatever you want. I mean, you could put a plastic worm on it if you wanted to. I don't know if that's really gonna do anything, but I mean, you can pretty much do whatever you want. It just depends on what you want to do.
Um, Frogs. We already talked about frogs, but this is what they look like.
Yeah, they're pretty popular when it comes to top water. It's probably the most popular bait to use on the market.
Yeah.
And some of the brands that I would prefer with most of these lures, Cabela's does have a good like variety when it comes. They do have like a you can get like a 24 pack of worms for like $10.
Mhm.
And it can be like watermelon, ghillie suit, black and blue, chartreuse, you know, whatever you want. Um, when it comes to frogs, I'm not really good on the brands.
Uh, there's some brands I forget the names, but um, they're usually not supposed to
I like
like collect
Strike.
like they're not supposed to
Strike
be
baits.
collecting water as quickly. They're only supposed to collect water as you twitch your rod and make movement with it. But there's some lures that as soon as you put it on the water, just a couple more seconds, it'll just start sinking. So then you just have to like take it back out,
Hmm.
empty the water, and then throw it back there.
Yeah, it gets stuck in like the belly of it, and you just have to like just get the water out really quick and throw it back out. And those ones aren't really the best brand. There's always like brands like um, Strike. Is there a brand called Strike?
I think so.
That one's really good. Um, I like those brands, and then some frog brands. I don't know. I'm not really good on the brands. Like, look up some brands really quick of like baits. Okay. So while he's doing that, there's also other baits that he like. So there's the swim baits that we covered. There's just see that stick bait right there. That's I'm not sure what that is. That's like a That's kind of like that's a top water, and there's also or no, that's not a top water. That's just like a bigger like crankbait, and then there's also joint baits that are top water too.
There's also plastic worms. You could use it for like wacky Texas rigs. They're supposed to obviously imitate worms, and then also I forgot what it is, but it kind of like attacks fish eggs, and a lot of fish don't like it.
Yeah,
But I totally forgot about the name of it.
and then there's besides like just bass fishing, there's also like musky fishing, and you can do it. There's a bunch of fishing like muskies, crappie, bluegill, sunfish,
Catfishing.
catfish, trout. There's a bunch. Um, I
Man, with catfishing and muskie, like those bigger animals, you kind of just. My favorite is just to use like fish,
swim
like
bait. Yeah.
bluegill, any small fish that they like.
Yeah, just use a swim bait. I mean, when I went muskie fishing, I caught a really big muskie, and I was with a guide, and we were using swim baits so to imitate like fish, and then the muskie just got it.
Mm,
And actually, no, I'm wrong about that. It was a top water, and the muskie came out of the water and just crushed it. And I remember I did that twice, and I almost got two muskies that day, two giant muskies. They were like that big, easily like over 20 inches for sure. But as you can see, there's some of the brands that are really common. Berkeley and Strike King are probably the main ones that I use, and then Rapala or Rapala, however you say it, that's really common too. Those ones are really good to use, and then there's always like these other brands, but I'm not really sure. Storm's a good one. That's a swim bait brand, and they do other baits, but they're mainly like swim baits and all that, and they're jig heads, and that's what they're known for. And having the jig head match the swim bait, so it matches up perfectly, and then it imitates a fish really well.
yeah, and then there's also Yum Dingers.
Yeah, I
They're
forgot about them.
they're one of my favorite brands as well.
Yeah,
They never disappoint. And then for like wacky worms or there's certain like hooks that you need to use. There's like it's called like circle hooks or like octopus hooks.
yeah,
And then with Texas rigs, you need like a bigger hook for it, obviously, because
yeah.
you're kind of laying it across.
Hmm. Yeah, he has the points he was saying are completely true. And for Texas rigs, the hook is like a hook, and then it's like kind of like straight, and then goes like that, and then there's the eye of the hook. So it's like it makes it so it inlines perfectly. And then Zoom Super Flukes are just pretty much a big swim bait. And there's also smaller swim baits, is when the Junior Flukes, and then I think it's the Junior Flukes and then Zoom Super Flukes, and then I think there's just a Giant Super Fluke, if I'm not wrong about that. But there's definitely different sizes when it comes to swim baits, and it's just what you're fishing. And then Rapala makes um, they are they're really common with their swim baits and everything, and Strike King's the same way. I think Strike King's a little bit better, but Rapala definitely might be a little bit cheaper when it comes to that.
Uh, yeah, I totally agree with what Louis just said. And yeah, there's a bunch of brands. It's really based on what you think is good,
Hmm.
your opinion. Like sometimes I don't like striking. Sometimes it's based on like
It's kind of like what you want to spend too, because I feel like Strike King's a lot.
mm,
I feel well, you can for Strike King you can get like a lot of baits that are just like it for a lot cheaper, just because it's such a top name brand that it's obviously going to be more.
I mean that, and also some brands don't have certain colors
Yeah.
like other brands do. Like Yum Ding has um a color that I like for plastic worms that other companies don't have. It's just basically just preference really,
Hmm.
and depending what you wanna do with that bait.
Yeah, and Cabela's is now combined. Cabela's is now working with Bass, so it's a combined company now. Like they bought out. I think Cabela's bought Bass or vice versa. I don't
No,
know.
Bass brought
Bass bought
Cabela's.
Cabela's.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, now they're working together, and you go to Cabela's, and there's a lot of selections. They will have whatever you need. They also have like their packs. Like I said before, they have their 25 pack of worms for like $20, and they're really, really good when it comes to the price. And here, can you click the what are the top lures? So obviously spinner baits are number one, and I don't know. I don't really know if I agree with that. I think worms are the number one because I feel like that's what people are switching to nowadays because it's so easy, so useful, and it's just something that is very accessible when it comes to like ease to buy, right?
Mhm. But you can't really cast them as far as you want them to. Like you
I
cast.
mean, you could weight them. You can put a weight
I
on
mean, you
them,
could
but
weight them, but then it's. I don't know. I don't really weight my worms when I use them. But when I use like rattle traps or like crankbaits, not crankbaits, but like rattle traps, I just launch them across the pond. Um, there's a lot of people use spinning reels. Some people use bait casters. I'm a
Mhm.
big fan of bait casters with Luz and Arbru Garcia are my two favorite brands of bait casters.
Yeah.
Just that's just because they've lasted so long for me in the past, so I just keep using them.
Yeah, it's definitely something that I can agree on. I don't have any lose, but I have a spinning Abu Garcia, and then I have a Abu Garcia baitcaster, and they're both the Revo X edition or whatever you would say. Um, but yeah, they're both Revo X. They're both all blacked out, and it looks so cool. It's so sleek, and I got my rods are both all blacked out too, so it looks really good, like the combo. I definitely want to get more bait casters, but I just haven't had time to go fishing this year, so I've haven't forked out money to get a new combo because I just haven't done it that much. So it's just something that I haven't thought about.
Yeah, I think I have three bait casters and one spinning reel,
I
and
got
they're all pretty good combos. For one of my Lose combo that I bought or I got for my birthday, um, it snapped on me, but that's just because I set the hook too hard on a fish, and but everything else was fine with the reel combo, everything.
yeah, I got two bait casters, and then I got one spinning, and I haven't had any issues with any of the products. Abu Garcia is one of my, it is my favorite brand to use for baitcaster spinning, whatever. Lose is second. Um, I just think that they've been around for so long and they have such a good stable brand. And what I've used the products for a long time and I've had no issues with them. I know this is definitely a controversial topic for Enticei, but when it comes to my rods,
Mm.
I'm all for Ugly Stick. That's all I've used since the day I started fishing, and that's definitely my favorite brand ever. I like how solid they are. I know there's a lot of people that don't like them, and I really don't understand why. I just really like them. I know that there's probably better rods out there, but I've just had them for so long and nothing's happened to them. And now they're coming out with their switch grip version of it, which I've always wanted a switch grip rod. I think that they're
Yeah,
so cool and they look,
finally. Um,
yeah, I feel like they're so cool and they
I
look
don't know.
sleek. And it's just like they just came out with them, and I'm excited to grab one day for sure.
I like ugly sticks, but not for bass fishing. Definitely not for bass fishing. I would use it for bigger fish like pike, muskie, catfish. I just think ugly sticks are just meant for bigger fish, not for bass. Um, Smallmouth,
I don't know, man. I
and
disagree a little bit.
and they're ugly.
No,
They
no,
don't even match with the reel, really. Like if you have a bait caster, you just have like a I don't know. It doesn't match
I disagree.
with it
The
at
reason
all.
why is because I have two Abu Garcia reels spinning in a bait casting, and both of my rods are blacked out, and it looks so sleek. I think it's the GX2 rod for both of them, and it looks amazing. Okay,
He's
all right.
lying to you.
No, no, I'm not. And I know this kid is gonna disagree, and there's nothing I could say to change his mind. But Ugly Stick is amazing, and they have their bass rods. I mean, you can bass fish with them. They have rods for bass fishing and whatever you need.
Okay, yeah,
So
now they do after
no, no,
such a long time.
no,
Well, they never had the switch grip one.
no, not the switch grip, but they've had bass rods for years.
They're still ugly. Anyways,
Well, it's part of their name.
there's yeah. Yeah.
But
Anyways,
not on my steak. Ugly Stick's the best rod ever made. That's all I gotta say.
I feel like Ugly Stick you can't feel the
Mm,
bite kind of.
yeah, well, if you are an advanced fisher, you don't need to feel the bite. You just know.
Okay. Anyways, you don't like with some of my rods they're so sensitive where you could feel the movement of the lure and also if you get a bite or not.
Yeah, but in my defense, I can feel the bite. All of my Ugly Sticks have like their sensitivity is not like, oh, you're catching like a freaking muskie and you're not gonna feel the bass. No, I mean you're gonna feel that bass if you catch it, and you can see the tip bend. You know, you can totally see it.
and
So
then with any of my rods, I always pick medium heavy, and they're like 7 foot 6'10". I don't know, they're huge, but medium heavy. Um, I tend to like that more. It's not like I don't have to be scared about like setting the hook hard and snapping my rod, even though that happened to me like 2 years ago with my lose. But that lose rod lasted me for like a long time, like 5, 7 years. So it was just old.
yeah, for my rods, mine are all. I think my shortest rod is 5'9", I think, and then I'm usually like I usually like having like rods that are like in around like the 6 foot range, like around there, just because it's easier to like use and stuff, and you can if you need to put them in your car, it's easier that way. Um, and then when it comes to the rod, obviously Ugly Stick. I have all Ugly Stick. Best rod ever made.
No.
All of mine are mediums. I don't think I have a medium heavy because the mediums are a little bit more sensitive to catching bass and everything, and that medium performs like his medium heavies because of the brand and Ugly Stick. It's his rods snap medium heavies. My medium won't even snap
Because it's an
anywhere
ugly
near.
stick.
Yeah, because those things are just brutal. They're freaking crazy when it comes to
Anyways,
fishing. No, there's no anyways.
there's an anyways.
So,
When it comes to line in certain lures, braided, I use braided for wacky worms, and then mono for crankbaits, rattle traps, and then I also use braided for topwater. It really depends on the line you use, what
mhm.
color. And then for mono, if you use the green or the see-through, I use the clear ones. It's also depends on the brand of the
Yeah,
line you use.
I have braid, but I've never used braid once. I only use mono, 20-pound line.
You just said I have braid.
Huh?
You just said I had braid.
No, I have braid. I have a line of braid, but I don't use it. I've never used braid ever. I just have it just to have it. I use 20-pound mono, and that's all I use. I'm definitely not like when it comes to like switching out my stuff and like having different rods for different things. I just use one for one, and one for the other.
See, that's the problem. It's because he uses ugly sticks.
Yeah, I
So
mean, Ugly Stick, literally, you can use it for whatever. I use mono 20-pound line for both of my rods, and I don't switch anything out. I have braid in case, but I don't know. I feel like having a bunch of these rods and everything is pointless because one rod can do everything. And I mean, literally, my rod can do whatever the fuck it wants.
yeah. Oh, anyways, you could. I feel like using only one rod is it takes up your time, and you have to like untie it, like you have to cut it off, tie it, and then keep on switching. But when you can have another rod that's sitting right there next to you, and not an ugly stick, but a very beautiful rod right next to you, and it has the lure you want to use next without cutting it,
Yeah,
retying
but
it,
okay, all right,
casting it out
but
there.
he does have a point. But you could always put what are those? You could always put a clip on it, and then you could just clip bait off, put them back on. You don't have to like. What's the point of tying it? Because if you put a leader on it, that line, that leader. Well, I don't use a leader. I just use a clip, and I just clip my stuff on there, and then it's easier that way. You can switch them out quicker. Oh, just use pop, boom, put another one on, and just throw it out there. Or you could just have a bunch of rods and not know what to do with it. So.
Well, you know what to do with it if you've been
No,
fishing long
no,
enough.
I know you know what to do with it, but just going from one rod to the other is stupid when you could just have one that does everything.
But when you already have one set up for you, why switch it? Look through your tackle box, try to find a lure when you have it
I
on
don't
your
know,
rod.
just with ease. I mean, you can use one rod for multiple things. That's how it is.
Then this is why I outfish him every time we fish.
That's definitely not true.
Last time it was I caught 5 bass, he caught 3, 1 by 2.
All right, well, maybe he can outbass me, but there's a lot of things that this kid can't do that I can do. All right, which is basketball, which we won't get into that topic, but um, yeah, he definitely might be better at me than fishing. I'll give it to him. But I mean, there's a lot of things that I definitely am better than him. But this episode was about fishing, and we crossed everything when it comes to fishing. When it comes to lures, when it comes to baits, um, lures and baits are the same thing. But when it comes to line, what rods you should use, obviously, this kid he has a very controversial opinion on ugly stick, but
Yep.
there's nothing about it. I mean, at least we both can agree on Abu Garcia being the best reels, one of the top best reels, and then there's obviously different brands of lures and stuff that we covered, and there's also different fish and species that you can go for. So thanks for watching. I hope you subscribe. Tune into our other videos that we posted. We also did a house tour video. Um, we talked about there's a bunch of other topics that we talked about and how COVID has affected a bunch of things. This is just one of the things that we are voicing our opinion on and giving you our opinion about fishing. And yeah, I hope you subscribe and enjoy your day.